Hi, good morning, everyone. It's brilliant to be at the Red and Yellow School. Lots of fond memories going back many, many years. So when I was asked to talk about how to earn the big bucks in advertising, is there money to be made in advertising, I immediately cast my mind back to about 22 years ago, and I thought to myself, it would have been really handy to have had this presentation to share with my parents when I told them that I was no longer going to become a plastic surgeon, nor put my law degree to any good use, but instead pursue a career in advertising. So you can imagine their horror when they found out that I was leaving behind those two very lucrative career options for a job in advertising. And so I suppose for a lot of people that are considering studying advertising, you know, what's well documented is the fun that can be had in the industry and the creativity. But a lot of people often ask themselves, is this a real career? Can I actually carve out a living? Can I make good money out of this? How lucrative is this? And the answer is yes. So thanks. It's nice to, but apparently I've got another 17 minutes to go, so I've had to put together a few extra slides. This is Damien Hurst. I don't know how many of you know who Damien is. Probably one of the most celebrated British artists, probably one of the most well-known contemporary artists in the world. And behind him is his shark art. I think it's the only way I can describe it. If it is art indeed, but that's a completely different debate. Recently sold at an auction for $13 million, owned by Charles Saatchi of Saatchi & Saatchi and M&C Saatchi fame. £70 million. Why is this a particularly important number? Why is it of significance? It was Martin Sorrell, then WPP lead. It was his paycheck in 2015, which made him not only the highest paid CEO in advertising in the UK at the time, but actually the highest paid CEO in the UK across all industries. So I think that hopefully puts to bed the question, is there money to be made in advertising? Can you have a lucrative career? Absolutely you can. What I wanted to share with you is really, I suppose, like any career out there, there are some people who make very good money in advertising, who have very successful careers and turn it into a very, very lucrative way of life, and a lot of people who don't, like many careers out there. So the question then really becomes, what have you got to do in advertising to make sure that you are successful, that you thrive versus the ones that don't? And I think it starts off with this picture of this young boy. Advertising is a very young industry, which is incredibly exciting. I think I've been to one retirement party in my 22 years in advertising. It is an incredibly young group of people that drive this industry. And whilst that's exciting, and it means that there's no ceiling, there's no tenure, you don't have to be in advertising for 5 years before you can move to the next position. You can get into this industry and you can double your salary in the first year. You can sit on the board of a company and be a shareholder by the time you're 30, and have all your peers look at you with tremendous envy. So whilst that's incredibly exciting, the career trajectory in advertising is unbelievably steep. It literally goes like this. Which means you've got to get out of the starting blocks really, really quickly. And what I've seen, certainly through my experience, is the people who got into advertising at the bottom and worked really, really hard, put in the hard yards, in spite of the fact that at the time you're probably looking at some of your mates earning a whole lot more money than you do and working a lot less hard. The people who've stuck to it are the ones that really have won and have come out on top. You're going to meet some famous people in advertising, and by famous people, I mean some of the most impressive marketing directors and CEOs in this country, people who have built unbelievable businesses of multinational stature. And I think one of the things that I always found to be true in terms of building a successful career in this industry is how you build those relationships and how you network them. In advertising, I remember as a youngster, sub 30, you get to sit in meetings with the most unbelievable human beings and you get exposed to the greatest minds, new ideas, new categories, unbelievable smarts. And if you network those opportunities, if you build those relationships, those are the individuals that are ultimately going to open up more opportunity for you. They're the ones that's going to offer you amazing jobs. They're the ones that will invest in your new ventures and partner you down the line. They're the ones that will share opportunity with you. So really very important to look at how you make the best of the network that you build and how you build those relationships with impact. So engaging with those people, how do you make sure that you're remembered? How do you make sure that you're adding value to the conversation? Absolutely critical to success in this industry. Stick. So I think that there is this perception that because advertising is such a dynamic industry, and because it moves and changes all the time, today this agency might be flavor of the month. Tomorrow, another agency has won an amazingly creative account and everybody wants to move there. Often what we see is that people tend to move around, particularly early on in their career. And I think it's often a function of the fact that you're young and you're working so hard and you're not earning a lot of money. So someone spots you, sees your potential and offers you $1,000 a month more and you go, ooh, I'll go there. And then you jump over here for a promotion. And so it keeps on going. And my advice would be that what one's got to consider, particularly as you start out in this industry, focus on building your career. Don't worry about building wealth. Don't chase the money. It will come. Once you've built your career, once you've established yourself, I promise you'll be in a position to negotiate a fantastic salary. But I have seen that the people that have chased the money have actually ended up not progressing in their career and leaving that brilliant career path behind. So make sure that you stick to the job that you've got. Convert that, add the value there. Most of the very, very successful people that I know in this industry have had 2 or 3 jobs throughout their entire career. In fact, I know some global icons in our industry who've had 1 job. They've started with 1 agency and they've stuck with that agency throughout. So, as much as it is about sticking to your craft and committing to your job, it is also about being open. Part of our industry is that you get exposed to such amazing technology and new ideas and products and opportunity. And some of them sit within advertising and some of them sit outside of advertising. But really what you've got to keep is an open mind to look at all these conversations that you engage with, all the new products that you see, the new categories that you get to launch, and to understand where is there opportunity for me to engage? Where can I access opportunity? Morris Saatchi comes to mind. I think in the early 90s, he took a punt on Adidas for £10,000, and it's given him a return of in excess of £30 million. That's a phenomenal return. Not nearly as exciting, but I actually ended up getting involved in the wine industry and becoming a partner in a wine brand as a result of what I was doing in advertising. So really it is about keeping an open mind and looking at all those opportunities and seeing where and how you can access them. Because advertising is about creativity, and creativity goes way outside of just the job that you're doing. And speaking of that, because we're in a creative industry, advertising is not a spectator sport. This is not a job. You can't come in at 8 in the morning and spend 7 or 8 hours doing what you're tasked with and then go home. It's an always-on mentality. Creativity is about understanding the human psyche. It's about understanding how consumers work. It means that on a Saturday morning when you're going shopping, you're walking down the supermarket aisle, and I do it every weekend, and you look at the packaging and you go, what's interesting about that pack? What's that message? Would that promo work? Is that better than that one? But you're not at the office. But it's because you absolutely love the business of ideas and creativity. And you've got to be deeply passionate and immersed in this world. Creativity has really got to fuel you, and it's not just about being creative on the job. It's about reading and watching movies and playing music and kind of engaging with people to fuel you with ideas. I think we've all got our own ceiling in terms of what you can teach yourself. You can't be creative unless you get some input from elsewhere. So it's really about opening you up to that. And I think there are some careers where you can be a spectator. I know mates who have a job and then they have a life. That's how they kind of define it. So they will come into work, and then after work, that's when they have their life. And I think the successful people in advertising blend life and work. It becomes a way of living versus just a job. And those are the people that we see achieve tremendous success. On that note, because it isn't a spectator sport, what we do find is that there are some people in our industry who love to just shift, by which I mean they move problems around, they dot T's, they cross I's, They end up fulfilling an administrative function. And particularly within bigger agencies, it's so easy to get stuck into that space where you go, I'm just doing my bit. But at the end of the day, advertising is really about solving big business problems through the process of creative thought. And what you've got to ask yourself on a daily basis is, how am I adding value to the process of solving a particular problem or solving a particular challenge? How do I respond to that? How do I engage with that? What's the value that I'm bringing to this process? Because from a client perspective, if the client looks at you and you go, Jacques is someone who helps me to solve problems, not just the company overhead that kind of supports the structure and the system, that's what fundamentally changes the way people engage with you. It's what fundamentally catapults your career towards success. And I also think it's what makes it really rewarding. When you feel like you're part of the solution, this becomes a very, very exciting industry to work with. And you kind of know when you're solving problems because the client will ask your point of view. They'll demand that you're in the workshop. They'll invite you to their marketing forum to come and partake in conversation. And it's really when you start solving versus just shifting that you know you're driving towards a successful career. So talking about how you solve, one of the questions people often ask me is, so what are the hot career choices within advertising? Should I go study copywriting, or is data analytics all the rage at the moment? Everybody's talking digital. What about social media? And yes, we can have a long conversation about the rise of data and analytics and what's happening in the digital world and how that's all influencing certain career choices and what the hot careers are right now. But I've got no idea of what it's going to look like in 3 years' time or in 5 years' time. So the reality is that you've got to look at not just your particular role within the industry, but looking at how do you engage with the other jobs and the other functions that makes up this industry. So if you're in account management, how are you partaking in the creative process? Because creativity sits at the very essence of this industry. It's not the domain of the creative department. You are as much responsible for delivering creative as an account management person. If you're in the creative department, why don't you push to build client relationships? What can you do to upskill in the digital space? Do you understand platforms like Salesforce? You might go, why would I need to understand that? I'm not in strategy. But you kind of do. Because when you're able to add value outside of just your job function, you truly understand the dynamics of the industry. What happens is when things change, and they do all the time, you're able to pivot just so much more effectively and so much more quickly, which means that you will always stay relevant and you'll always be ahead of the pack in terms of your career. Beautiful shot of New York City, my favorite city in the entire world. Cape Town maybe being a close second. I think what's exciting about our industry is that it is a global industry. This isn't something that's practiced in Beaufort West and nowhere else in the world. And you can go and work on Madison Avenue, and you can go and work in the UK. And South Africans are very highly regarded globally. And I can cite lots of examples of people who head up massive agencies and creative departments globally, South Africans. I think partly to do with our work ethic, but also I think what we often see, a bit like Brazil, a bit like India, where you find countries where there are socio-political tensions, where there are cultural nuances, kind of the developing world more than Switzerland perhaps, you find that ideas need to be more creative. Thinking needs to be more diverse. And I think that's why South Africa kind of punches above its weight on the world stage of advertising, and why there is such demand for South African talent globally. So it's a wonderful opportunity to access, and I certainly would encourage people, if the opportunity comes, grab it with both hands. I spent some time working in Sydney, which was a fantastic opportunity. And the one thing I will say, though, is don't do it too soon. Make sure that you've got value to add. Make sure that you've built up some experience. Otherwise, you can just get sucked in by this massive world out there. So, kind of hone your craft here. Know what the value is that you can add if you want to pursue an international opportunity. Having said that, do come back, or even better yet, just stay. Because I think the one thing that we've got going for us in this market, even though we're relatively small as a market on the world stage, because we're not what I call a lift and adapt end market, where you typically find a kind of homogenous first world community like a Switzerland, where mostly what happens in the industry is that a campaign will be developed in the UK or in the US, and it gets translated or it gets just cut short a little bit and then basically pushed into local media. What we've got here in this country is the need for a lot of origination because of the unique makeup of our society. And that means that as an industry, you probably do more ads than in many, many other markets. You have more client conversation around solving really big and challenging problems. You get closer to C-suite conversations, definitely than you would in a city like New York or in the UK. There's no way as a young person in that industry you would have the level of access and conversation that you have in this market. So I actually think that for advertising, South Africa is probably one of the most exciting markets. I think you can have an amazing career in advertising in this market. It's a brilliant country, and I think what advertising does at its very core is it uses creativity to help to solve and celebrate the diversity that we have in this country. And you can actually play an active role in terms of solving a lot of the problems that we have in this country, which is fantastically liberating and very exciting. But do have some fun. It's a very, very tough career choice. The hours are long. The pressure is exceptional. I think it's probably just a medical fraternity that I would imagine if you're an ER surgeon, that maybe you have more pressure. It is a tough career choice. And therefore, you've got to have two things on your side. You really do need to love it. If you're not passionate about creativity, leave now. Please get out of it. You won't enjoy it. The work will be too hard and the reward will be too low. But if you love creativity, if you're passionate about solving through very, very original ideas, then this is an incredible industry. But it will be a lot of hard work. So it is important to always bring a lightness of being to the office. To understand that, as a creative director of mine once said, we're not here to save lives, we're here to try and sell some washing powder. And sometimes you've got to bring that lightness into it. It's a hugely fun industry. You get to meet the most interesting and diverse people. So embrace that.
Our education system is predicated on the idea of academic ability. And there's a reason. The whole system was invented around the world. There were no public systems of education really before the 19th century. They all came into being to meet the needs of industrialism. So the hierarchy is rooted on two ideas. Number one, that the most useful subjects for work are at the top. So you were probably steered benignly away from things at school when you were a kid, things you liked, on the ground you would never get a job doing that. Is that right? Don't do music, you're not going to be a musician. Don't do art, you won't be an artist. Benign advice, now profoundly mistaken.
So there's a 20-minute talk on YouTube by Ken Robinson. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look at it. It's absolutely amazing. But I think the point that he makes in this particular clip is that creativity as a power tool has traditionally been hugely undervalued, particularly by our education system. And that has to change. I firmly believe that creativity is the superpower of the future. It's the one thing that we know right now a robot can't do. Maybe next year someone will invent a robot that can, but right now a robot or a piece of tech or a computer cannot do what we can do in terms of taking creativity and use it to solve really complex problems. I think what's very exciting about this industry is if you say to yourself, well, creativity is the superpower, if you, in an industry that embraces that and celebrates it and uses it on a day-to-day basis, it feels to me like we've kind of future-proofed our careers. What I think is also exciting is that what you're starting to see is how the world on a macro level are starting to acknowledge creativity for the power that it has in solving problems. So it's starting to branch out beyond just the advertising industry. You can see how creativity are infusing big brands and companies that are winning global. Look at what Apple has done with design and how they've put design at the very core in terms of what it is that they offer. You know, look at a brand like Tesla and the way they engage with innovative and creative thinking. So there's no doubt that if you can master the art of using creativity to come up with original ideas that solve big problems, the world really is your oyster. And you should be able to carve out the most famous and fun and lucrative career that is out there. But ultimately, and I hope you got a sense of that throughout the talk, it's not just about money. And I always say, yes, of course, money is important. If you don't know what to do with your money, if it's not important, give me your paycheck. I know where to go spend it. But it is about understanding that you're entering a career that is about creativity, that's about solving problems. You get to change people's minds. You get to change what people think and feel and say and do. And that's a power tool. It's so exciting to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis. And the problems that you're solving are not just growing businesses and growing the economy. You're actually in a position where you can make the world a better place if you put your mind to it. And I think that's an incredibly exciting space to be in. And yes, you can earn good money, but it's about the problems that you solve. It's about the ideas that you bring to the fore. It's about the people that you meet. It's about the diversity of industry and individuals that you engage with that makes this such an exciting career choice. This is my wife and I 2 years ago on a yacht off the coast of Croatia, reflecting on some good career decisions. And I love this picture because I remember the conversation that we had at the time. And she said to me, "Can you imagine if you had become a doctor, what your life would have been like right now?" And I don't know if I would have earned more money or less, who knows. But what I do know is that there is no way I would have had more fun. There's no way I would have the inspiring and exciting and exhilarating journey that I've enjoyed thus far, and I'm looking forward to doing for at least the next 22 years. So to all of you who are interested in a career in advertising, in a career in creativity, consider it seriously. It's fantastic, it's exciting, and I can only wish that you all have the amazing journey that I've had to date. Thank you very much.